Right, cool. Okay, so let's go again. So as I was saying, I want to try and keep it relatable to the room as possible. And I know like fitness as a whole really obviously depends what you're into, what you want to achieve. So I'll keep it relatively broad, and then once I get a better idea of what you all want, I'll try and make it a bit more specific to that. So I run a program called the Empowerment Project. It's predominantly an online-based coaching program of a community, but we do like regular meetups. We do things like photo shoots, sometimes just stuff like go to a bar and have drinks. It's not always boring fitness stuff. But the community's been running now for a couple of years, and it all started off with me and my wife. So Natalia and Pavla actually used to work together. So that's how I'm here today. And she would love to be here, but we had a baby last week. So yes, thank you. So yeah, he is just over seven days old. Bless him, little chunk. Yes, thank you. Trust me, I needed to be here. So Pavla, I'm guessing I'm going to give you a bit of a background of how we started the program. So this was really is sort of inspired by my wife, to be honest. So this was her a little while ago. She sort of struggled with her weight, her confidence, going sort of through her teens and her 20s. And when we first met, she was in this one there. So she already made a bit of progress, and she was actually a personal training client of mine. And I've always had a rule that I'd never date a client, but we ended up getting married. So that's sort of what she managed to achieve. And just by us sort of giving advice online, documenting her journey and sort of where she's gone, it's obviously inspired quite a lot of other women predominantly. I sometimes work with guys as well nowadays, but our program's been very female orientated over the years. And that's sort of how the program has become what it is. And these are some of the results we sort of achieve with people. So just a little bit of an overview. Now, some of these are weight loss focused. Some of them are just lifestyle focused. Like Natalia, when she worked with us, it wasn't really weight loss focused, but more just building better habits, feeling good. Some people want to build muscle. So like I said, there's a bit of a broad overview, and that's what I'm going to give. But I'll try and make it specific to obviously what some of you guys are interested in. So the idea behind this, physical health, mental health, energy, well-being, weight loss, weight maintenance. These are the types of things I want to try and cover. And in terms of where we're going to go with it, I want to start off with just some of like the basics of food, and I want to try and keep it simple and applicable, because I know there's like a lot of information out there, and social media is just crazy with food conflictions and advice nowadays. So just to keep it simple and just try and give you some ideas of like that you can actually take away that are applicable, because I feel like if you can't implement it, regardless of what you've been told, it's really irrelevant. And then just a bit of an overview on exercise and really how you should be sort of looking at that. A little bit about the menstrual cycle. So what type of things you should be tracking. Obviously, a lot of the time we can probably just look at one metric like scale weight, but there's a lot of things we can look at. So I'm just going to sort of give you an overview on that. And then we'll finish up with some questions. But before I do, everybody who works out? Does anybody go to the gym or run or anything like that? Okay, cool. So what are we into? Give me a little bit of an overview. What do we do? Do we run or go to the gym? Cycling? Swimming? Spinning? Running? Body pump? Cool. Walking? Lifting?
What was it? Muay
Muay
Thai?
Thai? Oh, damn, wow. Cool, okay. And then sort of goals from it. Like, why do a lot of you do it? Is it just sort of to feel good? Do you have any specific goals with it as such? Or is it just something that you like a routine or habit you've built up over time? Bit of both, yeah?
When you're cycling to work?
Yeah. Save money, yeah, cool, perfect. Yeah, okay, cool, perfect. Right, so Nutrition 101, where to start. So these are like the three things that I feel like are helpful and applicable. We're just going to talk a little bit about energy balance, and you know, I'm sure everybody's maybe aware of this nowadays, we've heard about it enough, but just to give a little bit of an overview on this. Social life, lifestyle, and sort of how to eat out and manage things, especially living in a city. That's always something that we have to help a lot of clients with. And I'll be honest, the last one's organization. So I even work with a big range of clients. Some of them are even personal trainers. They work in the gym, they get their clients' results, but they're busy doing one-to-one sessions all day, and they just struggle to implement even the things that they know they should be doing. So me just coming in and just helping them be more organized helps the above become a lot easier. So regardless sometimes of like what you know, it's just like how you can package it together to actually do it is sometimes more important. So 4 things I would really just think about when it comes to food. So calorie cycling, and this is quite simple in the sense if you know you've got a bit more of an active period coming up over the weekend, save a little bit for the weekend. No different to what you probably would do with money. If you know that the weekend's going to be more expensive, you'll probably spend less in the week. For example, like not get a £4 coffee on the way into work type of thing, right? Same thing when it comes to food choices. Put in a little bit more effort in the week, it'll help manage the weekend a little bit. Protein and fiber, if you have more of this in your diet, you're going to feel substantially better for it. And I'll give you a rough idea of numbers in a minute so you know where to sit with that. But both of them are a lot more satiating. They'll help with like balancing your blood sugar levels, stopping that mid-afternoon crash, help with other things like gut health, weight maintenance, muscle maintenance, all that type of stuff. And the last thing then is just trade-offs. So like, look, life is for living, and we're all going to die at some point. So there's no point trying to have the absolute most impeccable diet, right? So with this, what I would say is just that obviously from a health perspective, if you're eating better, more natural foods, if you like, then it's obviously going to support you feeling better. But inevitably, just like lean into the things that you would prefer and you enjoy, and I'll talk more about this in a minute. But if I was going to a restaurant, I'm not so fussed about dessert, can leave the bread and all that type of stuff, but I ain't saying no to a few glasses of beer. I'm just not. Where my wife is really not bothered about alcohol and she prefers cake. So lean into the thing that you prefer. I won't have dessert, she will. I'll have a few beers, everybody's happy. So it's just like, go with the things that you would prefer more so, and it's always gonna work. So calorie cycling, a little bit of an overview of this. Now, in terms of a deficit, this is basically what you need to lose weight. And for everybody in here, if you go roughly about 10 to 12 calories per every pound that you weigh, you will start to lose weight if you stick to that consistently, okay? Our bodies just need a certain amount of calories based on how much we weigh to do something, maintain. For most of us, if we sit around 14 to 16 calories per pound of body weight, you will maintain weight. And for a lot of you that maybe it's more performance related, like if you want to be getting stronger at the moment or just generally feeling better, then this is where most of you are going to want to sit. And then obviously if you are looking at gaining weight for whatever reason, most of the time we ain't, but let's just say you're looking at really trying to optimize for performance. You may want to eat more than your body needs sometimes. There wouldn't be any need to go much more over sort of 200 a day, but obviously doing that, you are going to gain weight slightly anyway. So that's a bit of an overview on that. This other graph then just gives you a rough idea of calorie cycling, and this is just what refers back to what I said a minute ago. So try and look at like your food choices in 7-day cycles, and don't get so caught up sometimes about things when they don't go to plan, because in the grand scheme of things, it really doesn't make a difference. Like, you know, on average, we eat 3 meals a day, 21 meals a week. If 1 or 2 of them meals when you eat out and about are just like way out of whack, there are another 18, 19 meals in the week that can really help align with your goals. Okay, and it's very much like what's sort of suggested here. Because I guess the reason why I say that as well is because, you know, we have some clients where they'll go out on a Friday and they just think they've ruined their entire week and then get in a bad mindset for the rest of the weekend, which then actually does ruin the entire week, right? Because they'll just go, screw it, I'll start again on Monday. So if you can just have that like mindset of going, you know what, it's just the one meal, and a bit of perspective on this, it always helps. So protein. Once you've got the food quality, once you've got a rough idea of how much you're eating, and look, actually referring back to this before I move on, you don't have to track calories. You don't need to know the absolute number in which you're eating, but having a bit of perspective on it is not necessarily a bad thing. And I've looked at thousands of plates of food, and sometimes if I'm trying to like just get a better alignment of what I've been eating recently, I will sometimes just go back to maybe weighing or tracking things even just for a day or two, just to re-jog my memory. I remember I did it the other day. I was like, I'll weigh out my food today just to see where I'm at with it. Put a bit of granola in the bowl, and I was like, is that all you get for 500 calories? Right? So sometimes it's just good to do this. If you want to do it more over an extended period of time, great. It's obviously the gold standard of getting faster results, whatever you're trying to achieve, but you don't have to do it. And I'd say at least half our clients make progress from a weight maintenance or fat loss perspective without tracking a single thing. But sometimes a little bit of like education and a bit of self-awareness is always helpful. So you can always refer back to it. Once you've got a better idea of portion sizes, the food quality is there for the most part. The next thing then is protein. Okay, so if you can focus on this, it's always going to make a big difference. The government guidelines suggest you have 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight, but this is already shown now in plenty of research papers over like 20 years that is not enough. And why they've changed it, I don't know. It's probably down to finances, because obviously protein is expensive, and if the government are giving out like aid of food, they have to meet their own minimum guidelines. So if they increase the guidelines, that increases the price of all this stuff, right? But it's already shown now that 1.2 to 1.6 grams of protein per every kilogram of body weight should be the absolute bare minimum. And if you're not having this, you'll notice things like just general fatigue, you know, your energy levels will be lower. Things like if you're working out quite regularly, you're going to be sorer for longer. So there's plenty of benefits of having more protein in the diet. If you work out a lot, you're going to be more 1.7 to 2.2. Okay, so if you train quite regularly, then that's where you're going to want to sit. So keeping it simple, if you're 80 kilos, 150, 160 grams a day, somewhere around there. Same again, you don't need to exactly know, but flip around the back of packets, you're like, cool, I'm having a chicken breast, that's 50 grams of protein, let's say, whatever, depending on how much you're having. In your head, you know you've sort of had a third of your goal for the day, okay? So these numbers don't have to be bang on, they never do, but a bit more awareness is always going to steer you in the right direction. Fiber then. Now, I don't know why, but as a whole, and you don't necessarily have to share, but I do find that women struggle with digestion more so than men. And I've had this conversation with a lot of women, they just struggle to go to the toilet. And then sometimes they're told maybe by the GP or doctor to have more fiber. Now where they normally go, and they don't necessarily realize this, is they just have even more soluble fiber, which basically slows down your digestion. So it's bunging you up even more so, right? So it's like you're constipated and now you're super constipated. So soluble fiber is a great thing. You want it in your diet. It will balance your blood sugar levels. It will make you feel substantially full for a lot longer. So whether it's weight maintenance or weight loss, you want to include it in your diet, but you also want elements of insoluble fiber. So this basically helps speed up the digestive tract and pushes things through, okay? It almost lubricates it, if you like.
Can I ask you,
yes.
What is soluble fiber and like examples?
Yes, yes, of course. So a lot of soluble fiber is more basically things that like bind onto water, because obviously it basically expands in the gut, and that's why it slows the digestive tract down. And insoluble fiber does the opposite, it just lubes it up. So in terms of food, like a lot of veg, so when people are eating a lot of veg and you're already quite constipated, it's just going to sometimes slow things down even more so. But like, for example, like prunes or dates would help speed it up quite a lot. So it's not like don't have it, do have it, but have a little bit of insoluble alongside of it. So if you had like, say, a handful of dates or a few prunes in the morning, maybe with your breakfast, say you're having it with like, I don't know, oats or Weetabix or something like that, that would then help just move things along while you're still having the soluble as well. But a lot of people just don't have the insoluble because soluble is a lot more common. It's just like veg and things like that where people look at that side of it. What I would say is that the soluble generally tends to be a lot lower in calories and insoluble tends to be a lot higher. Like if you look at a handful of dates, same again, it's a little bit depressing. You're like, wow, why is there all them calories in that many dates? So it's just obviously, depending on your goals, if it's weight maintenance or weight loss, you still have to factor that in. Because like I said, that's why we started with calories first, I guess. That is the first thing. And then trade-offs. This is me in 40 years' time. Maybe probably won't have hair, but so yeah, cake or booze, pick your thing, right? And if you like both, have one day, one the next, right? Just try to get into that habit of doing this. And like I said, even if you don't have to know the calories and worry about all these types of things, but if you get into the habit of doing this as a whole, it's going to sort of align more so of how you want to feel. And there's other things you can also sometimes do as well. Like I know for me in the morning when I wake up, I could eat breakfast, I could sort of leave it. I'm not so fussed, especially if I have a coffee. So I'm going to go out and have a bigger dinner that night. Then maybe I'll just have a coffee, pace my appetite, make sure I have quite a filling lunch, like protein, fiber. And because I've skipped my breakfast, it's freed up a little bit more room for later on in the day as well. What I would say, don't do it to the extreme and eat bugger all day. And then when you go out, you're like a bottomless pit, right? So you want to make sure that you still somewhat like feel satiated before going out to restaurants or things like that, or like a party. It's like, if you turn up to a buffet, it's like a kid in a sweet shop. It's never going to go well. You'll lose control. So, it's okay making trade-offs. It's okay being a bit more restrictive elsewhere sometimes if you're not as fussed, but just do it sensibly. That's what I would say. Cool. Right, so these are some examples. Protein's pretty obvious. Chicken, turkey, cod, tuna, salmon, mackerel, loads of types of beef and steak, Greek yogurt, protein powder. Then you've got things like tofu, quirk, and stuff like that. So all the obvious, I guess. There are ways, same again, that you can, let's say you're trying to promote a deficit, there are ways of picking protein sources that will allow you to naturally eat quite a bit less calories throughout the day, but not necessarily notice it. So this is where it comes down to choices that will help you implement more food volume. So for example, I've got a big appetite, and if I was trying to diet and eat less calories, I would probably go for like tuna in a can and some potatoes. Basically have a tuna jacket potato because there's a lot of fiber in potatoes, they're low in calories, you can have a lot on the plate. Same again, tuna is very low in calories, very high in protein. You could easily have like a massive plate of food for 600 calories and feel very full. Where like, let's say for argument's sake, you had like rice and salmon, nothing wrong with that, still a great dish, but there's going to be a lot more calories, a lot more good fats in the salmon, but that could easily be double the calories for the very similar size. So sometimes it's just about like the choices you make when you're trying to implement certain things, whatever it is, whether it's weight loss or weight maintenance. And sometimes making these slight changes make a big difference. So at the moment, I'm not trying to lose weight. So I'll just eat slightly differently based on if I was. It's like the odd little changes can sometimes have a big impact. It doesn't necessarily feel like a diet. You're just like, cool, I go for this meat rather than that one at the moment. And that is it, okay? Then when it comes to fiber sources, now what I would say is, you know what, my email's on them business cards and I can send all of you guys resources if you just email me, because this is, for me to go over it, you're probably going to forget. But here's just some examples. Things like any types of berries are fantastic for like an afternoon snack if you just want to balance your energy or your appetite and just have something where the calories are quite low. Like if you have just, you know, blueberries or whatever. Weetabix are a great thing in the morning, oats, and then you've got other different options there like sweet potatoes, white potatoes, turnips. A lot of these are more down the soluble route. But is the reason why I said about me just sending you the resource, because sometimes the problem is these kind of elements of both in them, so it does become a bit confusing, but there are some that have like extremes of one. For example, like I said, dates are a lot more just insoluble. Cool. And then I'll go away and Google this. This is always helpful and good to look at. Satiety index. Just go away and Google it. It's basically a list of foods that are extremely filling and low calorie down to foods that are really not filling and very high calorie. So if you just go away and have a little look at that, it's just online. And it's always quite surprising because a lot of clients will say to me when I first start working with them, oh, you know, I won't eat bread at the moment, or I'll cut out potatoes. I'm like, no, please bang as much potatoes on your plate as possible, because you will feel full by the time you eat too many calories, right? You really will. And so having a little look at that sometimes is just helpful, and it's just good to put it into perspective, especially if you're like, okay, you know, I'm going out this weekend, probably should maybe eat a little bit less in the week. But you don't, by less, I don't mean less food. It's just different choices that still feel like you're having the same, if not sometimes more, but it's just the choices that you're making. Cool. So, how to enjoy things and keep on track at the same time. Now, I want to maybe put this into a scenario of like, let's just say relatable to this summer, so a barbecue. One of the best things to do in this, or even anything, like, you know, if there is like loads of plates of food and you're at a friend's house with a buffet and you're thinking, okay, I want to try and manage this a bit better. One thing we always say to clients is like a 1 plate rule. So what this would be is like, grab your plate. She's laughing because Pav told you this a million times, right? And go, grab your plate and go and grab your food. And you've got it all on one plate and just look at it and like, does that look sensible? Is that what you would somewhat eat at home? If it is more, fine. But is it like literally hanging over the edges? Does it look ridiculous? Or like, you know, like you get a lot better perspective of what's in front of you if you just go up and grab all what you want at once versus going up and picking. And the reason why this is shown in plenty of research, but we can eat literally at least twice as much more when we're doing it semi-unconsciously. So it's like if you're in the cinema, you're sat there watching the screen and you're picking popcorn, before you know it, you're like, oh shit, there's nothing left, right? It's easily done. And especially if you're going up and you're like, oh, you know, I'll grab a burger, I'll grab a bit of this. In your head, you're like, you just don't register that you've eaten as much, and your appetite levels will actually be higher afterwards. So you'll feel way less satiated than if you just go up and keep to a 1 plate rule. So that's always a good way of going. Obviously pick more nutrient-dense foods. Like when you're picking stuff to start with, try and have more veg, salad, try and put more protein on the plate first, and then the remainder of what is the room that's left, throw what you want on. Rather than throwing that on first, do it the other way around. Don't skip main meals. This is a huge one. This is what I said a minute ago. So sometimes even having something small to eat before you eat is not a bad idea. Like let's just say you have like a high protein yogurt 2 hours before then going to a buffet. You're going to turn up feeling a little bit more controlled. And like we all have our own relationship with food in terms of how we deal with it, of course. I think all of us can agree that sometimes maybe we might like sort of stress eat or boredom eat or all these types of things. But we can generally be more disciplined if we feel good, right? It's easier to sort of say no or limit your choices if you're not starving, hungry, low in energy, or a bit stressed. So sometimes when you're turning up to these events, don't think, oh, I'm gonna have nothing all day. Like I would have something before. You don't have to have something huge, but just something little. Another thing then is food pairing. This is always a good one, especially if you've got a bit of a sweet tooth like I do. My nan owns a sweet shop, so as a kid I used to live off of sweets. So it's just like, there's no way I'm not eating them. But like one thing I always have in the evening is like maybe make like a Greek yogurt, and I will just put some like berries and things like that in there, so it's high protein, loads of fiber, but I'll just grab some dark chocolate and grate it all over the top. So I still got that part from it, but it's only like a minimal bit of chocolate, but it feels like it's hit the spot. Versus having like an entire chocolate bar and I'm just like, probably could eat another one type of thing, you know? So it's just a better way of doing it, and you add volume at least to your plate as well. Yeah, so this goes back to the trade-offs. So have the things that you really want versus the things you're not so fussed about. Like I said, you know, I could definitely eat some of Pavla's dessert sometimes, but I'm like, I'll stick with the beer. don't just eat for the sake of eating. I know it's easier said than done sometimes, but just question sort of like hunger cues are always a good one. If you're eating like the protein, the fiber, good quality food, you're hydrated and you feel good for the most part, your body's quite good at telling you when you need something and when you don't. So just try and listen to hunger cues, and that's always a good one as well. And just keep active. You know, if you're moving more, it's surprising. Things like steps make a real big impact to how much we expend, and I'll talk more about this in a second, more so than what you realize. And then same again, just calorie cycle. Like if you go over one day, it's not too much of a problem, just continue, have a bit more of a nutrient day the next day and sort of balance it out. So we are almost there so far. Any questions? I'm not boring you, hopefully not. Are we good? Cool. Oh, I'm almost done. Oh, no, okay, it's up to you. I think I'm almost done, so we'll wrap up. Should we do that and then finish? Okay, cool. Yeah. So this is just like how I'd want you all to look at exercise, because I think it can be looked at in a way where, like, if you're looking at exercise like a hamster on a treadmill, you're going in the gym or working out just to burn calories, is the most demoralizing thing. And I know I can understand why people would like. I don't work in a gym anymore, but when I used to work in a gym in central London, like the January gym rush was crazy. The gyms would make most of their profits in January for the rest of the year. They were just relying on people going, "I'll sign up," and then never turn up, right? And I'm guessing why. So a lot of people go in there and they look at it on the, like most people's first thing to lose weight is sign up to the gym, right? When if you look at this graph here, this is our TDEE, which is total daily energy expenditure. And I'm not going to go into this in too much detail, but there's basically 4 ways our body burns calories. The first one's our BMR, which is literally how much you weigh. So the heavier you are, the more you can eat. It's as simple as that. Most people sort of think, oh wait, if I'm heavier in weight, then my metabolism's not so good. But it's actually the other way around. Like for you to walk a mile would obviously require more effort at, let's say, 100 kilos versus if you were 50 kilos. Therefore, you burn more. So straight away, if we get the correct amount of food intake in place based on your BMR, it already equates to a large part of your day. The second part then is NEAT. I don't know why they call it this, but it's non-exercise activity thermogenesis. It's a very fancy way just for saying how much you move. If you are a builder versus someone who works behind a desk, straight away you have a different level of NEAT, and it can be quite huge, and that makes up about another 20%. The next bit then is TEF, which is thermic effect of food. This is basically the quality of your diet. And then the last thing at the top we got there, which is EAT. This is planned exercise. As you can see, it's like 5% of your day. So you going in the gym equates to 5% of what you burn on average, right? It's very minimal, and this is why people, when they're like, I want to lose weight or whatever, they sign up to the gym and they see minimal success because they don't focus on the latter. That's where they then get frustrated. And also, it's just a crap way of looking at it. Like, you go to the gym to get stronger, to have performance-related goals, to do it for your mental health, all these types of things. So if any of you have got any type of weight loss goal, look at exercise as a separate thing outside of weight loss. Don't get me wrong, it contributes towards it, 100% does, but I would definitely separate it because it would just give you a better relationship with what you're doing in that environment. And that's the way I suggest. And there's things you can think about, like performance-related goals, goal-specific, whether you're trying to prepare, let's say, you know, some clients that do like some triathlons or half marathon or whatever, you're just doing it for your mental well-being, your health, your energy, even your gut health. A lot of the times, more movement will make things move more effectively, okay? So if you're constipated or you're a bit stressed, you have a bit more internal inflammation than you would like, a bit of exercise helps things get moving. And same again, stress management, okay? So, yeah, look at exercise that way. Daily movement. So, outside, going back to this, the second part there is obviously your needs. So once we basically get your calories right, depending on whether you want to lose weight or maintain weight or whatever it is, the next thing that we can really play upon is just movement. By you physically moving more has a big impact across the week in terms of how much you burn, and it's massively underlooked. And like, don't get me wrong, steps can be time consuming, but sometimes you can do just minimal things that also make a big difference. Like get off the bus stop before and walk to work. Sometimes it'll take you 5 minutes, you know, or just walk, if you're going to the shop in the evening, take a right, a left, and then go to the shop. Or if you see, you know, you're on the tube, walk up the escalator. Like, it annoys me how many people just stand there. So lazy, man. Walk, you know, walk. But these, you're gonna have that in your ear now of me saying move. But these things do. Yeah, but these things do make a big difference. And the good thing is with steps, it has extremely minimal impact on like recovery, on your energy, on your appetite in comparison to exercise. And I see this all the time. Like people will go and smash themselves in a gym class, like let's just say spin, nothing wrong with it. I'm training for a triathlon at the moment and I'm spending a lot of time on the bike. But when I get off that bike, I am starving. Don't be wrong, I burn a lot on the bike. I'm on the bike for 3 hours, but I could easily eat twice as much as I burn when I get off of it. So if I did that for a weight loss point of view, it's somewhat pointless because I'm eating more afterwards, so it doesn't weigh up. Well, like steps, you could double, triple your steps, and sometimes you notice that it doesn't even really affect how you feel at all. So just being more aware of this and being realistic, there's no specific number, you know, this whole fancy like 10K a day or whatever. If you're doing 2K, do 4. Just do a bit more, but it will make a big, big difference. Okay, right, lastly, and then we are done. So this is the menstrual cycle. Now this is obviously going to be a little bit different for everybody, but this is just on a 28-day period. So follicular, luteal, and then ovulation in the middle. Now follicular, the first part, it's really like a sort of a 13, 14-day period. The first sort of seven days of that is obviously going to be menstruation, okay? Then you've got ovulation in the middle, which hormones for about 24 to 48 hours do spike. They come back down. Week 3, it's sort of a little bit lower. And then week 4 is basically PMS. And then it repeats, goes back around. So hormones go really high, and then that's when menstruation happens, and they drop very quickly. So actually the best time of the month, so he says, when you should feel the best, is actually when you're going through menstruation, believe it or not. So when like you should be quite strong in the gym and you can hit PBs is then. And obviously I know for some women maybe you feel different, and I get that, but from a hormonal perspective, that's going to be the best point of the month. What you may notice through PMS is that you're really tired, and the joints actually become a bit more freely movable at this point of the month as well. So you shouldn't be trying to smash yourself and hit PBs on certain sets and compare it to like literally the week before, because it's not really comparable. Men are a little bit more simple in the sense our hormones are relatively flat. So week to week data is quite relevant. Women, not so much. You should look at this like week 1 of, let's say, January versus week 1 of February. If you're trying to track anything, if you're trying to track your weight or your performance in the gym or whatever it is, compare it to the same physiological time of the month rather than week by week, okay? One other thing, I don't want to go into this too much because it can get quite complicated, but going into the PMS as well, the last part of the month, the average woman's metabolism is running at about 5 to 15% faster. It does vary, some can be more, some can be less. So that whole BMR thing that I showed you about a minute ago, that can be about 5 to 10% bigger than normal. So what that means is, let's just say you're in a calorie deficit or even eating the same amount of calories as normal, your body's actually burning more calories than it normally would be compared to any other week of the month. So what you should do is eat a tiny bit more, roughly 100 to 300 calories a day more of predominantly carbs. Otherwise, you're probably going to feel pretty crap. And you know, I know for sometimes a lot of women, they may lose a bit of control around food at that point of the month. And that's normally because they're quite depleted, blood sugar levels are low, and their metabolism's running faster. So if you just have, like, for example, a bit more rice on your plate, or an afternoon snack, you have like a bagel with something on it, like cottage cheese, like a bit more than you normally would, you'll feel better for it. Your gym sessions will go better. You'll probably find you have a bit more control around food and stuff as well. So, oh, sorry, there is one more thing. Tracking progress. So this lady here lost, I don't want to be wrong, between 24 and 27 kilos in about 6 months, a lot of weight. Her weight graph over here, as you can see, when it's coming down, it does this. And it will always do that. Even if you are maintaining weight, it will do that. So you always got to give yourself a rough boundary of about 1 to 3 kilos, even if you're weight maintaining. If you're heavier, it will be more. If you have more muscle mass, it will be more, just because the way in which you store things like water and stuff like this. But the best way of me explaining this is like, if I drink this entire litre, well, it's not, it's 1.5, but if I drink a litre of water, I will instantly put on a kilo, because that's what that weighs in terms of volume. So you've got to think your body's doing that every single day. So weight maintenance will flick up and down. Weight loss will be exactly the same. The best way, in my opinion, of doing this, and we've even seen this with clients that have horrendous relationships with the scales, is actually do it more regularly. If you track your weight 3 or 4 times a week, you're less reactive. You can actually see the data and you can start to understand the movements versus going, oh, it's a Monday, I'll weigh in, and you're like, oh my God, I put on 2 kilos from last week, this diet's stupid, right? So it gives you a bit more perspective sometimes. So that's the way I would generally deal with it. But outside of that, there's so many other things. Obviously the before and after, track your photos. You know, you don't have to use them or show them to anybody else, but it's a good thing for you to have in your own pocket, and just try to keep it consistent when you do them. Use a tape measure. Anything around your waistline or your neck, if it's going up or down, it's literally fat mass going up or down. Obviously sometimes limbs can change, but your midsection, and especially your neck, like for a lot of guys, they'll start to put on weight around their face. If this is moving or this is moving, it's just weight or fat mass doing something. Your energy, it's a great thing to look at, right? We see this almost like within the first 2 or 3 days of working with, I literally had a guy message me earlier, within like 2 days of following a diet, he's like, I just got so much more energy. Obviously, if you put good food in you, that's gonna make a difference. So that's one good thing to look at. Your mood, your mental health, even your resting heart rate. If this is getting better, then fantastic. These are all good data points. Your gut health, are you getting stronger? Look at all of these. Don't just do the one thing and look at, okay, what was my weight this Monday versus last Monday? There is just so much other stuff you can look at. Because like the more conviction you can get that you're making progress, you'll just be a bit more consistent. Like everybody wants results from doing something, we do. And if you feel like you're getting rewarded for your efforts, you'll just keep going. And you know, even for this woman, it's just a case of time before you get there. Thank you. That's it. Thank you.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much, Jacob. It was so interesting.
You're welcome.
Typing notes and stuff, but I know you said you will share the
recording.
With
Yeah, it's all recorded. Yeah.
But I think we have about 10-15 minutes, I want to say, for any questions. So I'll probably go with the last person so you guys can go.
Yeah.
Natalia, you're very kid, but I'm sure you have more opportunities to speak with Jacob.
Yeah.
I will skip you for now.
You could all do. I mean, I'll leave that there, just so you got it. If you want to email us, Instagram, and also lastly, I'll leave it on the business card. I'm not here to sell anything whatsoever, but we are actually running an 8-week challenge to the start of July, and there is on the business card, there is a URL. If you type it in, all the information's there about it. So whether you think it's helpful for you or someone you know, get them to have a little look, okay? But I'll leave that there, and while answering questions, you can have a little look, I guess. But yeah, sorry, carry on.
Before we go, guys, we will have little goodie bags for you to take away, so I'm going to drop the cards in there.
They're already there, yes.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. She's on it, look at this.
Yeah, so I have a question around fasting.
Yes.
And what is your view on that?
So I think it's actually a good thing, but it's like anything, I guess, and even online with these trends, things are taken to the extreme. And right, you'll have like claims of like it cures cancer and stuff, and I'm like, this is ludicrous. Like, where did that even come from? You know? So look, I do think there are benefits of humans being in more fasted states. Like, we're in a world now of abundance where you get your phone and you've got someone that will turn up with a bloody bowl at your door in 5 minutes. It's mental, right? Well, like, if you think from an evolution standpoint, that would not have happened. Like, our bodies don't know Tesco's is over the road. We do, our bodies don't. But that's the reality of it. So I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. I also think you've got to be mindful of where you're at on a personal level with your relationship with food, right? So like for me, if I was going to diet, I like really fast results, and I would, for some people, it may look like a crash diet, but it's not. I know how to manage it, and I would go very low, very hard on calories, and I'd probably eat 2 small meals a day. Well, not small, 2 bigger meals, but I wouldn't even eat till 3, and I'd probably eat again at 8, and that's all I would do, right? But for some of my clients that come to me and I can see they've had a bit of a rocky road with relationship with food and dieting and all these types of things, there's no way in hell I would get them to do that. And even if they wanted to do that, I'd be like, it's not happening. It's just not going to happen. So it just depends where your relationship is at with food. But I think putting yourself in a restricted state, if it's not good, is not a good thing. And being a bit more fed and satiated is a better option. And actually approaching weight loss or whatever it is slower is a good thing. On the flip side, it can be beneficial as well. It's a bit of a hard answer, but it's really person dependent. So hopefully that makes sense. And you may find, even from an energy point of view sometimes, and even just in terms of cleaning the gut out, it can be good. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with it. I would say, you know, doing even a 24 or 48-hour fast, if that's something you want to try, you've got to try it and see how you feel. But I wouldn't say there's any need. There's been shown in the research there's no benefit of doing anything more than that. So when you see online that there's people doing ones that are like 4 days long, it's just to get some good. It's just to get some good views on TikTok, I guess. You know, it's like there really is. And the other thing is, obviously, when you are doing it, just keep extremely hydrated. And when you do break the fast, get plenty of protein in. That's the first thing you want to do. Okay.
We had someone a few months ago at work who did like 3 days and he fainted.
Yeah.
The day 4 on the way to work, really injured himself massively, and then he was just like, honestly, I should like speak with GP or whatever. And this is the thing. I think if you're planning to do like 3 or 4 days, just get a professional advice.
Well, so the thing is, you can't. Basically, so look, okay, well, I'll explain this very briefly. But so basically, carbohydrates are extremely fast energy. As soon as you eat them, like, you know, if someone was on the floor and like in his instance, if you rub sugar on his gums, he would have probably come around almost straight away. And I've had it a million times with clients where they've just like done the same. I've had people come in for like comp sessions when I used to work in the gym and I didn't know who they were or whatever. They haven't eaten all day, and then they pass out on me, and I'm like, that's really fucking annoying because now I'm responsible for that, right? So the first thing I do is just spray a Lucozade down them and they're like, oh, sorry about that. I'm like, well, why didn't you eat, you lunatic? but basically anything that's even like remotely intense, carbs are king for fueling the session, right? If you're not doing anything intense, your body will predominantly burn through fat. Now, this is not body fat. This is why this whole idea of doing like slow incline walking will burn more fat. It's not. It's basically called substrate utilization. And not to bore you with it, but it's just the way our body burns energy. So if you're not doing anything overly intense, you won't have that effect really. Like, but as soon as you're in like, you know, spin class or anything that even revolves a bit of effort, you need to get fuel in, and that fuel predominantly being carbs. So yeah, don't avoid them. They're definitely extremely helpful and stop you from banging your head. Cool. Anything else?
So
yeah.
I actually have 2 questions.
Sure.
So, about fasting, well,
yeah.
it's more like, for example, what I do.
Yeah.
I eat once per day
yeah.
during the week.
Yeah.
So during work time, I don't eat, mainly because I feel so tired straight after. Even morning time, then I want to go to bed. At lunch, I wouldn't be able to go back to work. So what I do is that, okay, I don't eat, and then I go back at home around 6, 7-ish, and then I will have my main meal.
Sure.
And I've been doing that for quite some time. At the beginning, it was beneficial. I saw it. Personally, I feel more energetic anyway in doing it. But losing weight-wise is not helping anymore. Like at the beginning, yes, it was, but now it's not helping. I used to go even to the gym, and I was fine going to the gym even without eating. Obviously, probably I wasn't the same as the lady that passed out. But
yeah, so you've got a few things. I mean, like, as you lose weight, you've got something called like adaptive thermogenesis. So what this means is your body just basically starts to condition to lower calories. It's not like a starvation mode, like you may have heard something like that. That's rubbish. I mean, because people in Africa would not be starving because they've got no food, right? So that thing's just a load of BS. But basically, as you start to weigh less, your body requires less energy. When you've been in a bit more of a restricted state for a period of time, your body will slowly degenerate as well. Yeah. But what you may start naturally doing without even knowing it is a lot of it is actually your NEAT starts to reduce a lot. So like, for example, you'll sweat less, which means you're burning less calories. You'll probably even start tapping your feet less. You'll probably stop moving less. You'll subconsciously be like leaning like this on the way back home rather than maybe standing up. So naturally you're expending quite a lot less calories for that reason as well. And the other thing is maybe just how much is being consumed in that meal as well as potentially sometimes over the weekend. Unfortunately, it really is an energy in, the energy out scenario. And we've had sometimes our clients go, look, I'm eating 1,200 calories a day. Most people miss. So look, there's an interesting study with this. Most men misinterpret their calories by about 500 to 600 a day. Women 1,000, right? It's a lot, right? And I think maybe there's more emotional drivers behind it sometimes. But what I would say is just go back to the drawing board with that and have a little look. Because even if you're only having one meal a day, it's still sometimes possible for it to be more than you potentially realize. And it might not be the fact that it's like too much, but it might just be too much to see the weight continue to move, if that makes sense. Another thing what you said as well about the energy, sometimes people are just like, you'll sort of know this. You may have seen these things where you get on your arm, like the glucose monitors. I just think that's, in my opinion, not the best way of going about things. It could potentially create an eating disorder because you're worried about, oh my God, like, am I getting a spike? Like, in my opinion, you know, I'll eat loads of oats and I'm probably going to get a big glucose spike. Is that a bad thing? Not really. Like, no. And then now I'm going to demonize oats. I can't eat these anymore. So in my opinion, I think it's a bit stupid, but you can go based off how you feel. A lot of people, if they eat, like, I know if I eat like really, really sugary carbs, like sweets, like I love, I do have a crash. I do feel like shit. But I also know some people can eat them and I'm fine, right? So it's just dependent, person dependent. What I would say is just monitor it based on some of your choices. Like in the morning, maybe if you have like bread or cereal or things like this, and you're like, have a bit of a crash, maybe try going more high fat, high protein. So you could just go, for example, a few eggs, or you could even go like a few like turkey, you know, like get normal bacon, you can get turkey rations. Have some turkey rations and have some eggs and maybe like a little bit of like sort of salad or veg with that, so you've got the fiber there. You may feel great off of that instead. So you just sort of play with it a little bit and see how you go. So I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, no.
Cool, amazing.
Okay, and I had another
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
Sorry. So what about, okay, so the polycystic ovaries.
Yes.
Yeah. So obviously, well, got diagnosed with that, and now we'll probably like not be so.
Yeah. So that's actually interesting. If you said that first, then I could have given you.
Okay,
yeah. So
sorry.
that's fine. That's fine.
That's the first question.
Pavla had that as well. And there's two things. On a bit of a lower carb diet would definitely help. So basically the way in which you utilize carbohydrates won't be as good as it would have been previously before this.
Right.
So it does mean that you may get a bit of a crash off of them sometimes. It's not like you need to go totally carb low, but just having maybe less of that, more of the protein and more of the fat, maybe a better fuel source for you, might feel better. And secondly, resistance training helps a lot. Like that will help. And obviously lastly, weight loss. If it comes down, there is a way of sort of reversing that and managing it. So they're the things I'd focus on predominantly. But like, if you're getting stronger in the gym, maybe change up some of your food sources, go a bit more like the fat and the protein. So, you know, like nuts, avocados, oily fish. Obviously just equate for calories because good fats still hold a lot of calories, of course. So do equate for that. Get the protein in as well. And then, yeah, keep with the strength training. I know you said you're already doing that, right? So yeah, that's the best way of going for sure. Cool. Anything else?
I personally always struggle to stick with the program. I do it for like 3-4 weeks.
Yeah.
And then I kind of struggle.
Yeah. I get it. Yeah, no, I get it.
I was just wondering if you have any.
Yeah, no, I'm sure Natalia will maybe can say her opinion on this. But like every single thing we do with each person is different. And to be honest with you, after a week or two of giving someone something, more often than not, there is a problem that we need to change. So when we talk to a client first of all on a call, we'll just like give them their habits, their training and their nutrition. There'll be 3 things, they'll go with it. And then we then just literally like looking at how we can fill the gaps a couple of weeks later. There are always going to be like pitfalls in what you do. I'm just guessing just trying to look at the areas that you were doing quite well that contribute towards you feeling good and can keep with them. The areas where you're like, oh, there's a bit of friction here, or this is just not ideal, I'm not enjoying this, then just we need to find slight ways of changing it, if that makes sense. And even like a lot of clients with their diet, we won't just flip it on the head. One thing they do quite a lot to start with is like inside our app, they'll just take loads of photos of what they're eating the first couple of weeks, and we can look at their meals and just go, take that out, put this in. Sometimes it's like subtle changes that make a big impact. So I'm guessing think like that as well. Because if you're trying to stick to something that's vastly different to your everyday living, yeah, it's a nightmare. You know, it's a nightmare. So yeah, just think about them things. Cool.
I have a question.
Sure.
So I get really confused with like what's healthy.
Yeah.
Because for example, like yogurt, like high in fat. Some cereals is like very high in sugar.
Yeah.
So what's like an easy, like straightforward thing that
yeah. So I'm guessing like a little bit of a thing to sort of list off, you know, like you may have seen loads of people online like just demonize loads of foods. I think like anything in moderation is fine, but like if you can think about like, does my food swim, walk, fly, come from the ground, or grown on a tree, right? So like cereal doesn't do either of any of them, right? If it's in them categories for the most part, then you're going down a great route of nutritional quality. But then adding in a bit of whatever's also fine. I would also say if you can start off your day more so with them elements, it's better. Like for example, eggs, or even like maybe oats, or even like Weetabix. I mean, they are a bit more processed than eggs, of course, but it's not overly processed in comparison to maybe cereal, so it's a bit more in the middle. Would probably be a better way of starting your day than maybe the cereal, for example. So like try and move away from that and have eggs or oats, etc. So just think about the quality and where it actually came from and how it was produced. And it has a massively long shelf life, then it's probably not as ideal. One thing I would say is like don't get overwhelmed with like, you know, you see people online nowadays read out the back of labels and all the ingredients inside of stuff, which is just like ridiculous. Because some of the ingredients they're reading out, they don't even realize is in other products like an apple, right? Like some of these like chemicals are in things like apples, but they're reading them out like it's some sort of like bad thing when it's not. It's just more so obviously like our body works better off of single ingredients food as a whole. Like if we can obviously eat more that way, then that's a good option. Sure.
Probably around debunking some myths,
Yeah.
potentially. If you feel hungry, should you be reaching for water first?
This is interesting, yeah. So like the thing is, hunger cues, I don't think most of us know what hunger cues are, because nowadays, if we're hungry, stressed, bored, tired, everything's food, right, straight away. Sometimes even, like we're not even hungry, we just eat. So yeah, I would, because the hunger cue and a thirst cue are very similar. So sometimes, yeah, I would. Yeah, definitely.
Eating after a certain time?
Nah.
Or does it matter?
No. That doesn't make a difference. You know, it's crazy, because if you think, especially like, you know, some clients are like, oh, I eat late at night, so I'm not losing weight. I'm like, well, your body doesn't look at the fridge or the clock on the fridge and suddenly go, I'm not going to digest that, right? It keeps functioning. Now, the only thing I'm guessing you do need to be mindful of is like, does it affect you, how you sleep? And maybe like thicker like foods, like more stodgy foods, like more processed foods, and even things that are not processed, but even stuff like maybe red meat and stuff, may affect your sleep a little bit. I know I could eat probably half a cow and go to bed straight away, right? But like, it's just personal preference. Obviously, if it affects your sleep, then that's going to affect how you feel the next day, which then probably will affect food choices. Because obviously, if you're more tired, you're more likely going to snack on stuff. So that's the only time it could be an issue. But lastly on that, if you're coming home late and you do still want to eat something a bit more carb-based is easier to digest. So having like maybe oats before going to bed and throw a bit of protein powder, mix that up. Simple as that. Yeah.
Last question, if I may. In terms of getting older, I think one of the things I'm more conscious of is strength training and building muscle.
Yeah.
Is there something you can share?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, yeah. We were having this conversation at the start, right? Yeah.
5 minutes before.
Yeah. So I'm guessing it's just like, you know, I said it to you, is use it or lose it. It's really as simple as that. Like with muscle mass, for most guys, as they're going through like mid-40s and testosterone starts to go down the other side, and women, obviously, as you're coming up more so towards menopause, both are going through two pretty big hormonal changes, and anything after that period, your muscle mass is only on the decline. So I think for longevity of health, like when I said earlier, pick exercise you enjoy, do 100%, but I do think there's definitely value in everybody doing at least like 2 strength sessions a week of about 20 to 30 minutes at the absolute minimum, even if you're just doing it for longevity. You know, like I've always said this even to my own mum, I should never take my own advice, but like, you know, she's only in her late 50s now and had 2 hip hops. Now maybe she probably needed them anyway, but she could have probably definitely delayed that by a fair period of time if she just worked out. She's always been a runner. And don't get me wrong, I run, I'm training for an Ironman at the moment, which is basically a long distance triathlon, and why I'm doing, I don't know, with a newborn kid. But you need to do something that physically challenges the muscle, right? That puts it underneath a sufficient amount of tension to force it to basically at least maintain and ideally grow. So even things like body pump, like clients say to me, oh, strength trainer, do body pump. It's great, but it's more aerobic. You're just getting sweaty. You're moving loads of light dumbbells in loads of different directions. You need to do something that basically almost gets you to failure or close to failure within a relatively low rep range, say within 10 to 15 reps. And for most people, if you just train full body, that would be fine. If you go to the gym 2 or 3 days a week, pick one muscle group per, one exercise per muscle group. So it's really simple. You have push, which is anything on the front. You have pull, which is anything behind. And then you've got lower body the same. You've got like pull, and then you've also got push. Just pick one for each, which is 4 exercises. Do 3 to 4 sets. And then afterwards, you could do a bit of core or a bit of arms or something like that to finish with. So realistically, you're doing 5, 6 exercises, 30 minutes, 3 or 4 sets of each. Do each one with good quality and intensity, and that's all you need. You don't need to be in the gym any more than that. Like most of them results that I showed you at the start, then people, some of them even train at home, but most of them train in the gym, but even then it's 3 or 4 days a week. That's all they would do. Yeah, so that's it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So it doesn't mean that the longer the workout is, the better, isn't it?
No, definitely not. No, it's more about quality. So like if there's something called like junk volume. So there's like shown in the research, after about 20 sets of a muscle group over a week, there's no real added benefit to doing it. So like, for example, if you just did 4 sets for your chest, let's say on a Monday, 4 on Wednesday and 4 on Friday, you've done 12 over the week. Anywhere between 10 to 20 is in an optimal rep range, as long as they're done with quality. If you just go in there and most people don't train nowhere near hard enough. And I have this conversation with a lot of my clients. They're like, oh, I want to put on muscle. I'm like, whatever you think you're capable of, you need to go 5 times higher than that, and then we're on the same page, right? Okay, like you just have to get used to grinding through the gears if you want to put on muscle. Our bodies do not, you know, loads of women are like, I'm scared I'm going to get bulky. I'm like, I fucking wish I'll get bulky, right? Like, you know, like if you, exactly, it does take a lot. So really it's more about quality and intensity over quantity every single day, 100%.